Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from BidAmount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is May 11th, 2018. And earlier today, we put up a video for the upcoming, sort of an overview of the upcoming sales in London next week with Sotheby's, Bonhams, and Christie's. And this is the regular look back at last week's eBay auction results. Some pretty good things sold last week, and they did very well. And we're going to get into them right away. All right, and we'll take a look at what's coming up over the weekend and what's coming up next week. We found some things this week we want to share, and some nice objects. Okay. And we're going to start with this. This was something I put on there on the newsletter last week because I happen to like carved wooden objects and so forth. And this was a really nice panel. I hope some of you looked at it. It had very good patina. It was extremely well carved. Very good carving on this. Most of these are not that good, but this was a good one. If you look in here carefully, look at the detail here. Really nice old surface on it. Nice carving, the way the folds of the robes are done, the way the tail of the Fu Lion is done, and so forth. And the figure carrying the banner. It just was a very good little wood carving. It came out of probably a very fine piece of 18th or 19th century furniture. And somebody got a bargain. It went for nothing. It went for $71, okay? This was a particularly nice carving, and so I think somebody got an absolutely fabulous buy out of that, okay? I thought it should have brought probably 300 or 400 at least. It was excellent quality. So bravo, whoever got it. And then there was this plate, a late 18th century plate in the Chinese taste with a butterfly and this grisaille, some grisaille ground with this sort of interesting honeycomb diaper pattern and figures, and a gentleman sitting in a moon window and so forth, and the ladies and a child in the foreground. It was a nice dish. There's the back of it, exactly what it should look like. And it went for a good price. It brought $526, which was not an overpay. It's a rather unusual plate for its pattern. All right, I liked it. And then this was also a very good buy for the week. This was a grisaille and iron red decorated shaped rim dish. With a child playing a flute and some elders sitting around a table having something to eat. There's some, looks like pomegranates or some sort of fruit in a bowl, a gentleman napping in the foreground. And it had a Dao Guan mark, and I have no reason to doubt it. It looked all right. Somebody had an old Qi Lung, they used to pronounce it Keen Lung mark on it. This isn't a Chin Lung mark. This is Dao Guan, but nonetheless, this was a very nice dish and was a pretty good, I think it was a really good buy for someone. Actually went for $150. Okay, that was a good piece. All right, and it was for the Chinese market. They didn't do a lot of grisaille decorated stuff for China, so it made it sort of interesting. And then there was this plate. This was a really well done reticulated rim 18th century dish with ho-ho birds or peacocks in the center, and your eye goes right to this beautifully done Fimi rose, peony blossom, nice use of overglaze blue, and it was probably Yongchen period, but really excellent quality. Here's a shot of the back of it. Nice plate. This guy had two of them up. This particular one brought $1,508. He was also the same seller that had that first plate that we looked at with the figures in the moon window. And then this was up here. This was a nice Chanqi period export plate, early 17th century, nicely done with a box, a nice old box with it. As you know, many of you know, the Japanese collectors often had beautiful wood boxes made for these dishes, and especially for Chanqi pieces because they were typically shipped to Japan. And it went for $448, which was a pretty good price for that. It wasn't an overpayment. It wasn't an underpayment. It was right there, and it had the box. All right. And then next is this either Kangxi or early Qinlong. It's hard to say. It looks Kangxi to me. Leaf-shaped dish with nice enamels, beautifully done. It's a well-known form. It's an export form. Here's the back of it, pretty typical of that period. And it brought a reasonable price. It only had two bids, which surprised me, and went for $300, okay? very reasonable price to pay for this. Most of the ones you see like this are done in just underglazed blue. This one was enameled, and the enameler did a great job of using the shape of the dish to decorate. He incorporated his artwork into the shape very well. Nicely done. All right. And then there was this probably Tongxi period, late 19th century pot. This was up Qing period had this up. Brightly decorated and scribed. These square form pots are always of interest to Chinese collectors. And this one did pretty well. It brought $1,525, which isn't bad. Qing period had a good sale. He had some really nice things. And I hope some of you took part, because there were some pieces in there that didn't go for a heck of a lot of money. Here's the page he had. He had this very nice Kendi that went for just $2,000. Had a good deep blue color and was a nice shape. And this very nice early 19th century cloisonné bottle of the Jing period. I thought this was a particularly good buy, $720 and so forth. So. Because don't ever be intimidated to place bids just because somebody has a good following and sells great things. You leave lots of bids. You never know what you're going to get. All right, and then there was this pair of vases he had up as well. They're obviously modeled on the peach bloom form vases from the Kangxi period. He listed them as Republican. I tend to agree with them, or early 20th century, but beautiful quality, nice white porcelain, and both with Kangxi marks. And they brought $3,450. All right, but very fine quality. And he also had this very nice transitional vase with this rather elongated form. It's an unusual shape, this very sort of elongated shape with this garlic head knot here in the midsection of the neck. Very, very well painted and good white porcelain. And went for $4,383. All right. There's another pair. How tall were these? 8 inches tall. They were a good size for those. All right. And then there was this Tibetan silver box. This was a really nice one, carrying box, altar box, but exceptionally good quality. This thing had some beautiful work in it. If you looked at it, if you bothered to look at it, it's all silvered and nicely done. And it went for $455, which I think was considerably under what it should have brought. I thought this would bring $800 to $1,200. And if you check the Bonhams catalog coming up in London next week, they have a bit of Tibetan metalwork in there. And check the estimates in there. They're getting more and more money for these things these days. And then there was this really nice, very well-known type barrel form export mug. But with good decoration, made around 1790 or so, and appeared to be in pretty good shape. And it went for $366. Alfred Ceramics had this again. He's been getting good things, and I don't think that was. I think that was a very reasonable price for that. That was a nice piece of export porcelain. And then there was this charger, this faceted charger, nicely done. A lot of good use of negative space. It appeared to be in rather good condition, unusually so. The seller listed it, I think, as Kangxi or Yongchen or something. Clearly, it's an 18th century piece, probably made in the 1780s or 90s, I think. But nonetheless, it did just fine. It brought $740, but it was a very pretty plate, nice one. All right, I'm not sure why he thought it was Kangxi or Yongchen, but at any rate, they're hard to date if the person selling isn't too familiar with it. But perfectly nice example is a picture of the back. And whenever you see the backs of plates and they have all this orange peel on them, you can be pretty certain that it's not, Yongchen or Kangxi period. And this was another piece that I think was a rather good buy for the week. This very unusual mug, and it looks Kangxi to me. Very good use of iron red with these swirling, a very unusual pattern, and this double base on it at the bottom, and so forth. Here's a picture of the interior of it. Looked to be in excellent condition overall. Here's the foot rim of it, but a rather unusual tankard, but looked authentic to me. And it only went for $242. Had no repairs, no restorations, no cracks, and I think that just went under the radar. If anybody can tell me why, send me an email. I'd love to know, because that to me looked like a $700 or $800 pot. May be wrong, but boy, it looked awfully good to me. And then there was this box. This was something that Scrap Dixon, Tony over in France, had up. It's a Chinese export dome top box. But this type of export box done in lacquer is actually quite rare. Very unusual, and may be why it went for a very reasonable price. But if you go into Google Images and check Chinese export lacquer boxes of tea caddies, that kind of thing, you'll see that they are not often in this form. It's a very unusual form for this, but it did have the very typical interior with the fronds coming up on opposing one another. It had its original tray, and as you can see, the lacquer work on it was in really good condition all the way around. Tiny bit of wear on one corner, nothing much. Tiny bit of wear on the other corner, but a very nice Chinese export box. And it looked to be in excellent shape. And get this, it only went for $455. That surprised me. Whoever the fellow got it got a great buy. All right, I like that. And then there was this. This was another piece that was put up by the seller earlier that had that very beautiful reticulated Yongchen plate and the Chinese taste plate. He had this up. This is a really unusual dish. With the lavish use of the entire bowl, with the exception of a very narrow, modest rim with these Dutch ships in it, and I thought it was just great and very unusual for an export bowl, and it went, I think, for a relatively modest amount, $619. All right, that was a good bowl. That was a really good bowl. And somebody got I think that was a very good buy. And then there was this Kakyeamon, sort of a lotus bowl with these fluted rim on it and all that. Nicely done bowl. Had a very attractive, well done interior. Not a lot of wear anywhere evident on the enamels, which is important on these, because enamels on Kakyeamon can be prone to chipping. And so you always want to check them pretty carefully, because the enamels can get a little brittle. But this one looked like it was in very good shape, not even any wear to the iron red, which is very thin. And it went for $710, which I think was a perfectly reasonable price. That was a nice piece of Kakyeamon. And our friend over in the Netherlands had this very pretty big pair of first half of the 19th century rose mandarin jars with figures and butterfly panels and all this stuff. All right, and this was Hans 3962 had this, our friend Freak, and they brought $2,275, which was a good solid price for these. But very attractive. You know, these are the kinds of things, if you went into a London or a New York or a Boston store that sold antiques, they'd probably ask $4,000 or $5,000 for these easily. So somebody got a good buy on those. Okay, the shipping is a little high on big pots, but expect it, because they charge by dimensions these days. The size of the box indicates more of the price than the actual weight. So once you get into big pieces, expect to spend a little bit for shipping. These weren't bad, $75 a jar, which is very much in line here to the United States if we were to have bought them. Perfectly fine. And then last was the Blanc de Chine figure. This was a really pretty Blanc de Chine figure. I liked it a lot. Nice creamy glaze, beautifully done folds in the robes. A very lovely, passionate face. The eyes turned down, the way the lips were done. Everything was really, really lovely on this. And it got a lot of interest and brought $3,888. This is our friend at Collecting Asia out in Illinois. Nice piece, very nice piece. And then moving along into things that are coming up that are closing in a couple of days. I just noticed that whoever had these plates up, these very pretty pair of Canton plates, they are now gone. I suspect somebody made him an offer he couldn't refuse for them. They were very pretty. But these are the things coming up that are closing in the next day or so, in Monday. And we'll add a lot more to the newsletter this week. This is a very pretty Kangxi plate with these nice lotus leaf-tipped edging around the outside and then on the interior again. and then blossom in the center. Nice looking plate. There's the back of it. Very typical of Kangxi pieces with that sort of vanilla ice cream foot rim to it. And so far it's up to $484, and I suspect it'll go up a good bit more. It's a nice plate. And then there's this little water pot. It's a charming little water pot done in the second half of the 19th century. Good quality image. Here's a picture of the bottom. On these, they often use these spurs on the bases. That way they can glaze the bottoms and they don't get stuck to the floor of the kiln when they're making them. And this one has, I love this one, the guy, the fisherman. That's a really folky little picture. He's coming home from a day of fishing. And right now it's up to just $57, and I expect it'll do a good bit better. But that's a nice thing. That's a nice thing. And this Femi-Vert panel, this is actually set into a frame. It probably was originally, I'm going to bet this was originally in a screen of some sort. I can't really tell how old, what the date on this. I'm going to say for safety's sake it's 19th century, but very good quality. And the frame is excellent on this. This is a really nice frame, probably a late 19th century, but very high-grade frame was put to it. If you examine it closely, it could be a little older. But anyway, it's a nice one. And right now it's just up to $235. You might want to think about that if you like Femi-Vert pieces and you have some wall space, you know. They'll make wonderful things just to hang on your wall. And then this second half of the 19th century shaped bowl, you've all seen them. But this one, I think, is a particularly nice one. It is very interestingly decorated with all the figures, with foo dogs. Here's another with elephants. Here's another one with a pink foo dog. Here's one with some sort of mythical horned beast. And so forth. Here's one with a deer, spotted deer. So it looks like maybe a series of immortals. He's carrying a rue scepter. Nice, interesting piece of porcelain. And right now it's up to $366. I suspect it'll go pretty well beyond that. I'll be surprised if it doesn't. It's Kangxi mark and period. And there's this ding bowl. And this looks fine to me. There's a lot of copies of these floating around. But from what I can see, this might be all right. All right. It was apparently sold originally by Leslie Hinman. You can see how the bottom of it got a little bit stuck to the kiln at some point when they had to pull it off. It was a little rough on the edges. Here's the side shot of it, interior shot with the two fishes and nice decoration. That ends on Sunday. And there'll be other things this week as well, okay? And last, I wanted to point out that something we didn't put in the video, there is a single lot auction on the site for Bonham's auction house. If you're interested in really unusual bronzes, there's a gilt bronze lamp that they're selling. It's called The Rare Vestige of Imperial China, and they did a really good job with this catalog. It's a single lot sale. It'll be mixed in with another sale sort of at the beginning, you know, and here it is. Okay, there's a picture of one. I don't know if that's the same one. It might be. But there's a very good write-up on it in here with lots of images and explanations of how butter lamps were used. And this one is mark and period, so it should bring a lot of money to a bronze collector. All right. And as I said, we have the catalogs are now all up for the upcoming sales, including the Hong Kong sales. We just added those the other day. There's I think there's 5 of them up here. Okay. And we have a few others to add. Here are the 2 that are in London and so forth. Okay? And that's it for the week. And check out the video we did for the upcoming sales in London. They're nice looking. There's some good stuff in there. And should be really interesting. And we'll do one on the Hong Kong sales next week, hopefully. All right? So we're sort of scrambling around here today. All right. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you all next week. And good luck out there if you're hunting around for things and trying to find something, all right? All right. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.